Ahsoka Tano says yes. The word leaves her lips and everything changes. The Jedi Council sits in stunned silence. They expected her to walk away. They expelled her, left her to die, and now she's accepting their apology, accepting knighthood, staying with the order that betrayed her. This one word rewrites the Clone Wars. It changes Order 66. It alters Anakin Skywalker's fall to the dark side. Because when Ahsoka stays, she's there for the moment that matters most. The moment when her master stands on the edge of darkness. And this time someone pulls him back. But here's what nobody expected. Staying doesn't save Anakin from falling. It doesn't prevent Order 66. It doesn't stop the Empire. What it does is far more unpredictable, far more dangerous, and ultimately far more hopeful. One decision, one word, and the entire Jedi Order transforms into something it was never supposed to become. Something better, something that might actually survive. Let me show you what happens when loyalty wins over independence. The council chamber is silent as Ahsoka processes their offer. Master Windu speaks about how her trial proved her strength. Yoda talks about growth through adversity. Obi-Wan smiles with genuine relief. But none of them truly understand what they put her through. The fear, the isolation, the betrayal. Ahsoka looks at each council member. Then she looks at Anakin standing in the corner. Her master's face shows such hope, such desperate need for her to say yes. He's already lost so much. She can feel his attachment to her through their bond, the fear of losing another person he loves. And despite everything, despite the anger and hurt, Ahsoka still believes in what the Jedi are supposed to represent: peace, justice, protecting the innocent. She takes a breath and says yes. She'll stay. She'll accept knighthood. She'll continue to serve the Order. But things will never be the same. The council seems relieved, almost surprised. They didn't expect her to accept after how they treated her. Master Windu gives a curt nod of approval. Yoda's ears perk up, sensing something different in her Force presence. Anakin's relief is palpable, flooding through their bond like a wave. The knighting ceremony happens quickly. Too quickly, almost like they're rushing to formalize her return before she can change her mind. Ahsoka kneels before Master Yoda. The ancient Jedi Master's lightsaber hovers above her montral. The traditional words are spoken. When she rises, she's Ahsoka Tano, Jedi Knight. But she doesn't feel triumphant. She feels hollow. This was supposed to be a moment of joy, the culmination of years of training. Instead, it tastes like ashes. Anakin tries to celebrate with her afterward, but Ahsoka is distant. Their relationship has changed. She's not his Padawan anymore, not his little sister to protect and guide. She's a full Jedi Knight now, his equal in rank if not experience. But more than that, something broke between them during the trial. Anakin's desperation to prove her innocence revealed depths of emotion that made her uncomfortable. She could feel his anger, his willingness to tear apart anyone who hurt her. It scared her because it felt familiar. It felt like the dark side. The Clone Wars continue. Ahsoka receives her first solo command, leading a battalion of clone troopers in the Outer Rim sieges. She's effective, brilliant even, using unconventional tactics that save lives and win battles. But she's different now, more cautious, less trusting of the Council's directives. When orders seem wrong, she questions them. When strategies would sacrifice too many clones, she finds alternatives. Her clones notice and respect her for it. Rex, now serving under another commander but occasionally working alongside her, sees the change in his former commander and worries. The war drags on for months after her trial. Ahsoka distinguishes herself in battle after battle. She liberates occupied worlds, rescues prisoners, stops separatist advances. The Council begins to see that their decision to take her back was strategically wise. She's becoming one of their most effective generals. But they also notice her independence, her willingness to bend rules when she thinks it's right. Some Council members, particularly Mace Windu, watch her carefully, concerned she might be too unpredictable. Anakin and Ahsoka's relationship becomes strained. He wants things to go back to how they were, but she's moved beyond being his student. She sees him more clearly now, sees the cracks in his facade. His mood swings, his barely controlled anger, his attachment to Senator Amidala that he thinks nobody notices. Ahsoka worries about him constantly but doesn't know how to help. When she tries to talk to him about his emotions, he deflects or gets defensive. The easy camaraderie they once shared is replaced with careful politeness and unspoken concerns. Then comes the Battle of Coruscant. Ahsoka is commanding forces on the planet's surface when the Separatist attack begins. She's coordinating the defense of key government buildings when she feels a disturbance in the Force. Something dark and terrible is happening above the atmosphere. She later learns that Chancellor Palpatine was kidnapped and that Anakin and Obi-Wan went to rescue him. By the time they return, General Grievous is dead and the war seems to be winding down. But something is wrong. Ahsoka can feel it. The Force itself feels disturbed, like a storm gathering on the horizon. Anakin is different when she sees him after the battle. Harder, more closed off. He's been named to the Council as the Chancellor's representative, but they didn't grant him the rank of Master. The insult stings him deeply, and Ahsoka can feel his resentment through the Force even when he tries to hide it. She attempts to talk to him about it, to remind him that rank doesn't define worth, but he barely listens. The Council grows suspicious of Palpatine's expanded powers and his reluctance to end the emergency measures now that the war is ending. They make a decision that will prove catastrophic. They ask Anakin to spy on the Chancellor, to report on his activities. Ahsoka learns about this from Obi-Wan, who confides in her his concerns about both Palpatine and Anakin. She's horrified. Asking Anakin to spy on Palpatine, a man he views as a friend and mentor, is asking him to betray his principles. It's the same kind of manipulation she experienced during her trial. Ahsoka goes to Anakin immediately and finds him in turmoil. He's angry at the Council, conflicted about his orders, and there's something else. Something he's not telling her. She can sense fear radiating from him, deep primal terror about losing someone. She asks him what's wrong, really wrong, and for a moment he almost tells her. But then he shuts down, saying everything is fine, that he just needs to focus on his mission. Ahsoka doesn't believe him, but doesn't push. Maybe she should have. Days pass in a blur of tension. The Council is meeting more frequently, discussing something in hushed tones. Ahsoka isn't invited to these meetings despite being a Jedi Knight. She's too junior, too recently returned to the Order, but she hears whispers. The Council suspects Palpatine might not give up his emergency powers. They're discussing what to do if he refuses to step down once the war officially ends. Some speak of arrest. Others urge caution. The conversations make Ahsoka deeply uncomfortable because they sound like political maneuvering, not the Jedi way. Then Anakin comes to the temple late one night. Ahsoka is meditating in the Room of 1,000 Fountains when she senses him. His presence in the Force is chaotic, desperate, darker than she's ever felt it. She finds him in one of the meditation chambers, pacing like a caged animal. When he sees her, something in his expression makes her heart stop. He looks tortured, broken, and there's yellow beginning to creep into his eyes. Anakin tells her everything in a rush. Palpatine is a Sith Lord. Master Windu is going to arrest him. Padme is pregnant and dying. The Chancellor promised to teach him how to save her. He doesn't know what to do. The words tumble out of him in a desperate flood, and Ahsoka realizes with horror that her worst fears about Anakin are coming true. He's on the edge of falling, teetering on a precipice that could destroy him and everything he loves. Ahsoka doesn't hesitate. She grabs his shoulders and makes him look at her. She tells him that Palpatine has been manipulating him from the beginning, that Sith Lords deal in lies and fear, that whatever he's promised about saving Padme is a trap. She can feel Anakin's conflict, the war raging inside him between what he knows is right and what he desperately wants. She tells him they'll find another way to save Padme. They'll search the Jedi archives, consult healers, try everything. But trusting a Sith Lord is not the answer. Anakin wants to believe her. She can feel him reaching for hope like a drowning man reaching for a rope. But the fear is too strong. He's terrified of losing Padme the way he lost his mother, of being helpless again while someone he loves suffers. Ahsoka keeps talking, keeps pulling him back from the edge. She reminds him of who he is. The hero who saved her countless times. The master who taught her that attachment doesn't have to lead to darkness if balanced with wisdom. The man who always found another way. And slowly, painfully, Anakin comes back from the brink. The yellow fades from his eyes. His breathing steadies. He tells Ahsoka about Master Windu's plan to arrest Palpatine, happening right now. They need to go. They need to help. But Ahsoka has a different idea. She tells Anakin to go to Padme, be with her. Trust that the Council can handle Palpatine. His place is protecting his family, not rushing into a confrontation with a Sith Lord when he's emotionally compromised. Anakin resists at first. He needs to be there. He needs to know what happens. But Ahsoka is firm. She tells him that the best way to protect Padme is to be with her, to keep her calm and safe, not to get involved in a fight where his emotions might make him vulnerable to the dark side. Finally, reluctantly, Anakin agrees. He leaves for Padme's apartment. while Ahsoka rushes toward the Senate building where she can sense through the Force that a terrible battle is taking place. She arrives too late to join the fight, but in time to see its aftermath. Master Windu lies dead, thrown from a window. Palpatine is injured but alive, surrounded by clone troopers. And as Ahsoka watches in horror from a hidden position, the Chancellor addresses the Senate. He declares the Jedi traitors who attempted to assassinate him. He announces the formation of the First Galactic Empire to ensure security and stability. And then, most terrible of all, he transmits Order 66. Ahsoka feels it through the Force immediately. A wave of death and betrayal rippling across the galaxy. Jedi dying everywhere, cut down by the clone troopers they fought beside. She needs to get back to the temple to warn whoever she can. But even as she runs, she knows it's too late. The trap has been sprung perfectly. Palpatine planned this for years, maybe decades. The clones' inhibitor chips activate, overriding their personalities, turning them into perfect executioners. The temple is burning when Ahsoka arrives. Clone troopers, the 501st, Anakin's own legion, are slaughtering everyone inside. Younglings, Padawans, Masters, no one is spared. Ahsoka ignites her lightsabers and fights her way in, trying desperately to save whoever she can. She finds a group of younglings hiding and helps them escape through the lower levels. She encounters Jedi she trained with, fighting back to back against impossible odds. And through it all, she keeps reaching out through the Force for Anakin, terrified of what she might find. She doesn't find him at the temple. Later she'll learn why. Anakin, despite her words, despite her intervention, still went to save Palpatine from Windu. He arrived just in time to see the Jedi Master apparently trying to execute a helpless Chancellor. Anakin's fear and love for Padme overrode everything else. He stopped Windu, enabling Palpatine to kill him. And in that moment, Anakin Skywalker fell to the dark side, becoming Darth Vader. But Ahsoka's conversation did something. It planted seeds of doubt that didn't exist in the original timeline. Vader is born, but he's conflicted in ways he wasn't before. Ahsoka manages to escape the temple with about a dozen survivors, mostly younglings and a few injured knights. They flee into Coruscant's lower levels while the Empire consolidates power above. She uses old smuggler routes she learned during the war, contacts from her brief time outside the Order during her trial. The survivors look to her for leadership, and despite her youth and her own terror, she provides it. She keeps them moving, keeps them hidden, keeps them alive. Days pass in a blur of survival. Ahsoka receives a coded message through old Jedi channels. Obi-Wan Kenobi and Master Yoda survived. They're calling all surviving Jedi to return to the temple to help rebuild. But Ahsoka recognizes the trap immediately. The message uses the wrong authentication codes. The Empire is trying to lure survivors out of hiding. She warns the younglings not to respond, to trust no one, to assume every Jedi channel is compromised. Then she senses him. Anakin, but not Anakin. Something dark and terrible wearing her former Master's Force signature like a twisted mockery. Darth Vader is hunting Jedi through the lower levels, and he's getting close to their hiding spot. Ahsoka makes a decision. She tells the other survivors to run, gives them a rendezvous point, and stays behind to face Vader alone. She needs to know if any part of Anakin still exists. She needs to try to bring him back. Their confrontation happens in an abandoned factory, machinery silent and rusting around them. Vader emerges from the shadows and Ahsoka's heart breaks. He wears dark robes and his eyes burn yellow. But he's not in the suit. He's whole, powerful, terrifying. This is Anakin Skywalker at his peak, corrupted by the dark side but not weakened by injuries. He's more dangerous than the Vader of our timeline could ever be. When he speaks, his voice is cold but recognizable. He tells her that Anakin Skywalker is dead. The Jedi killed him. He offers her one chance to join him and the Emperor to bring order to the galaxy. Ahsoka ignites her white lightsabers. She tells Vader that Anakin isn't dead, that she can still feel him buried under the darkness. She reminds him of their conversations, of how he taught her to think for herself, to question orders that seemed wrong. She tells him that Palpatine manipulated him, that everything the Chancellor promised was a lie designed to turn him into a weapon. Vader's response is to attack, his crimson blade moving with devastating speed and power. The duel is brutal. Vader is stronger, more experienced, empowered by rage and the dark side. But Ahsoka is faster, more agile, and she knows his fighting style intimately. She trained under him for years. She can predict his moves, counter his techniques. More importantly, she fights defensively, not trying to kill him but to reach him, to break through the darkness. She keeps talking between exchanges, reminding him of missions they shared, people they saved, moments of laughter and friendship. And something incredible happens. Vader begins to slow. His attacks become less certain. The yellow in his eyes flickers. Ahsoka's words are reaching him, piercing through Palpatine's conditioning. The seeds of doubt she planted before his fall are growing. He stops mid-strike, his lightsaber trembling. For a moment, Anakin Skywalker looks out through Vader's eyes, and the anguish in them is unbearable. He tells her in a broken voice that he's already done terrible things. He led the 501st into the temple. He killed Jedi. He can't come back from this. Ahsoka lowers her lightsabers. She tells him that everyone can come back if they choose to. That redemption isn't about erasing the past, but about choosing differently in the future. That she forgave the Council for their betrayal, and he can forgive himself for his mistakes. The moment stretches, taut with possibility. Vader is teetering on another edge, but this time with someone pulling him toward the light instead of pushing him toward darkness. Then clone troopers arrive, responding to reports of a Jedi sighting. The moment breaks. Vader's face hardens. He tells Ahsoka to run, that he'll hold them off, that this isn't over. She doesn't want to leave him, but knows she has to protect the younglings. As she flees, she hears Vader's lightsaber igniting behind her, the sounds of battle. But she also feels something through the Force. Vader is letting her escape. Some part of Anakin is still fighting. Ahsoka reunites with the survivors and they flee off-world, stealing a transport and jumping to hyperspace before Imperial forces can track them. She makes contact with Bail Organa, who is coordinating with other Jedi survivors, including Obi-Wan and Yoda. They establish a hidden refuge on a remote world in the Outer Rim. Ahsoka brings her group of younglings there, finding a small community of surviving Jedi trying to figure out what comes next. The reunion with Obi-Wan and Yoda is emotional but strained. They're devastated by what happened, by how completely they failed to see Palpatine's trap. Yoda especially seems diminished, the weight of the Order's destruction crushing him. When they learn that Ahsoka confronted Vader and that she believes Anakin might still be reachable, Obi-Wan is torn between hope and despair. He tells her about Mustafar, about how he couldn't bring himself to kill Anakin but left him to die. Learning that Anakin survived and became Vader without the suit's limitations terrifies him. The surviving Jedi face a crucial decision. Do they try to rebuild the Order? Do they attempt to fight the Empire? Or do they hide and wait for a better opportunity? The Council is shattered. Mace Windu is dead. Ki-Adi-Mundi is dead. Most of the senior masters are gone. Yoda and Obi-Wan are the highest-ranking survivors, but they're paralyzed by grief and doubt. It falls to younger Jedi like Ahsoka to provide direction. Ahsoka argues passionately for action. Hiding feels like giving up. The Empire is consolidating power, hunting down remaining Jedi, enslaving entire systems. If they don't resist now, if they don't stand for something, then the Jedi truly are dead. But Yoda counters that direct action would lead to their complete annihilation. The Empire has clone armies, Star Destroyers, Vader, and the Emperor himself. A handful of surviving Jedi cannot win that fight. They need to preserve what knowledge they can, protect the younglings, and wait for the Force to show them another path. The compromise they reach defines the next 2 decades. The surviving Jedi split up. Some, like Yoda and Obi-Wan, go into deep hiding, watching over potential future threats or hopes. Yoda chooses Dagobah. Obi-Wan volunteers to watch over Anakin's children on Tatooine, though he doesn't know Ahsoka confronted Vader or that she planted seeds of possible redemption. Others, including Ahsoka, choose a different path. They become part of the nascent rebellion, using their abilities to fight the Empire indirectly while protecting the younglings and training them in secret. Ahsoka connects with Bail Organa's growing resistance network. Her strategic mind, honed during the Clone Wars, proves invaluable in planning operations against the Empire. She doesn't advertise being a Jedi, instead operating under various aliases and identities, but those who work closely with her recognize something special. The younglings she saved grow up in hiding, receiving truncated Jedi training from Ahsoka and other survivors. They can't build lightsabers, can't practice openly, can't embrace the full Jedi life, but Ahsoka teaches them what she can. Meditation, Force sensitivity, combat basics, and most importantly, the ideals of service and protection that define what the Jedi were supposed to be. These children become the seeds of a new generation, one that might rebuild the Order someday if they survive long enough. Years pass. The Empire tightens its grip on the galaxy. Vader becomes the Emperor's enforcer, hunting down Jedi and crushing resistance movements with terrifying efficiency. But he's different from the Vader of our timeline in subtle ways. More conflicted, more prone to showing mercy in unexpected moments. Occasionally, rebel operations that should have been discovered aren't. Imperial forces that should have found hidden Jedi bases somehow miss them. Ahsoka suspects Vader is helping from the shadows, fighting his own war against Palpatine's control. She tries to make contact with him through the Force several times. Sometimes she feels him reaching back, a familiar presence tinged with darkness but not completely consumed by it. Other times she encounters only the cold fury of Darth Vader, and she knows those are times when Palpatine's influence is strongest. It becomes clear that Anakin and Vader are in constant struggle within the same person, and which personality dominates depends on circumstances and the Emperor's proximity. Ahsoka learns about Luke and Leia through Bail Organa, Anakin's children hidden away, unaware of their heritage. She wants desperately to meet them, to tell them about their father before he fell, to train them in the Force. But Obi-Wan insists they need to remain hidden, that revealing their existence could draw Vader or the Emperor to them. Ahsoka reluctantly agrees but monitors them from afar, ensuring they stay safe while the rebellion grows. The rebellion becomes more organized, more effective. With Jedi like Ahsoka providing strategic guidance and using the Force to enhance operations, they score significant victories against the Empire. The destruction of the Death Star happens much as it did in the original timeline, but with Ahsoka providing intelligence that helps the Rebel fleet avoid several Imperial ambushes. When Luke Skywalker emerges as a hero, destroying the battle station, Ahsoka finally meets Anakin's son. Luke is everything she hoped he would be. Brave, compassionate, strong in the Force despite no formal training. She sees so much of Anakin in him, but without the darkness, without the fear and anger that corrupted his father. She wants to train him immediately, to help him reach his potential. But Obi-Wan has already begun Luke's instruction, and adding another teacher too quickly might confuse the boy. Instead, Ahsoka becomes a mentor from the shadows, supplementing Obi-Wan's lessons with her own insights. When Obi-Wan dies on the Death Star, Ahsoka feels his passing through the Force. She mourns him but also understands that he chose his moment, sacrificing himself to help Luke escape and to become one with the Force where he could still guide his student. With Obi-Wan gone, Ahsoka steps forward to help train Luke more directly. But her approach is different from the old Jedi ways. She teaches him that emotions aren't the enemy, that attachments can be strengths if properly balanced, that questioning authority is sometimes the most Jedi thing you can do. Luke is receptive to these lessons in ways Anakin never was. He's not bound by the old order's dogma, not carrying their trauma. He's a blank slate who can build something new. Together, Ahsoka and Luke begin envisioning what a new Jedi Order might look like. One that learns from past mistakes. One that doesn't forbid love but teaches healthy attachment. One that serves the Force and the galaxy without becoming entangled in politics. Then comes Bespin. Luke rushes off to save his friends despite warnings, despite not being ready to face Vader. Ahsoka wants to go with him, but the rebellion needs her elsewhere, coordinating fleet movements for an upcoming operation. She can only watch through the Force as Luke confronts Vader, as the terrible truth is revealed. Vader is Luke's father. The boy's world shatters, and Ahsoka feels his anguish across the galaxy. But something else happens on Bespin that didn't occur in the original timeline. When Vader reveals he's Luke's father and offers him a place at his side, Luke refuses and throws himself into the abyss. But as he falls, Vader hesitates. The conflict Ahsoka saw years ago resurfaces. Vader watches his son fall and for a moment considers diving after him, saving him, abandoning the Emperor and everything he's become. He doesn't do it, but the fact that he considers it shows how much of Anakin still fights within him. Luke is rescued by Leia and the others, physically wounded but emotionally devastated. When Ahsoka finally reaches him, she finds him questioning everything. How can he be the son of a monster? How can he fight his own father? How can he become a Jedi when the dark side runs in his blood? Ahsoka sits with him and tells him about Anakin Skywalker. Not the sanitized version Obi-Wan presented, but the real man. Brilliant and flawed, heroic and troubled. Someone who made terrible choices out of love and fear, but who was never wholly evil. She tells Luke about their last conversation before Anakin fell, how close she came to preventing it, how she believes part of Anakin still exists within Vader. She shares her experiences confronting Vader, The glimpses of humanity she saw, the times when it seemed he was helping rather than hunting them. Luke absorbs all this, and slowly, a new understanding forms. His father isn't beyond redemption. The dark side doesn't have to define him. And maybe, just maybe, Luke can succeed where Ahsoka couldn't and bring Anakin Skywalker back to the light. The rebellion prepares for its final confrontation with the Empire. The second Death Star is under construction, and intelligence suggests the Emperor himself will be there to oversee its completion. It's an opportunity too significant to ignore, but also obviously a trap. The Empire knows the rebels will come. They're counting on it. The rebel leaders debate whether to risk everything on this one battle or continue the slow guerrilla war they've been fighting. Ahsoka argues for action. She's spent nearly 2 decades fighting the Empire, watching it crush freedom across the galaxy. The Death Star represents everything wrong with Palpatine's rule, a weapon designed to enforce fear and destroy hope. Even if it's a trap, they have to try. Luke supports her position, but for different reasons. He needs to face his father again. He needs to try to save him. The Force is calling him to Endor, and he has to answer. The Battle of Endor unfolds with Ahsoka commanding rebel forces on the ground alongside Han, Leia, and the strike team. Her presence makes the mission far more successful than it would have been otherwise. Her Force senses detect Imperial ambushes before they spring. Her combat skills help them survive overwhelming odds. And when the shield generator is finally destroyed, it's partly because Ahsoka used the Force to sabotage Imperial communications at critical moments. But the real battle is happening above, on the Death Star. Luke confronts Vader and the Emperor, just as he did in the original timeline. But this time there are differences. Vader's conflict is stronger because Ahsoka's words from years ago never stopped echoing in his mind. When Luke refuses to fight and Palpatine begins torturing him with Force lightning, Vader's internal struggle reaches its climax. He sees his son dying the way he feared Padme would die. He sees himself becoming the very thing he swore to destroy, a tool of tyranny and death. And this time, when Vader makes his choice, it's not just a father saving his son. It's Anakin Skywalker finally rejecting everything Palpatine represents, finally accepting the redemption Ahsoka offered him decades ago. He grabs the Emperor and throws him down the reactor shaft. Palpatine's Force lightning courses through him, causing terrible damage, but Vader survives the initial assault. He's not in the suit, not dependent on life support that the lightning would destroy. He's badly injured but alive. Luke rushes to his father's side as the Death Star begins to collapse. Anakin, his face scarred by lightning but recognizable, looks at his son with clear blue eyes for the first time. The yellow is gone. The darkness is gone. Only a dying man who made terrible choices and finally chose right remains. He tells Luke he's sorry. Sorry for everything. Sorry for abandoning the Jedi, for serving the Empire, for not being the father Luke deserved. Luke tells him there's nothing to forgive, that choosing to save him was enough, that he's saved now in every way that matters. But Anakin doesn't die. Luke gets him to the shuttle. They escape the Death Star just before it explodes, and when they reach the rebel fleet, medical droids go to work on Anakin's injuries. He survives, though he's weak and will need extensive recovery. The rebellion is won. The Emperor is dead. The Empire is fracturing. And Anakin Skywalker, redeemed but facing the consequences of decades as Darth Vader, must figure out what comes next. The immediate aftermath of Endor is chaotic. The rebellion transitions into the New Republic, establishing a government to fill the vacuum left by the Empire's collapse. But they face a massive problem. Anakin Skywalker is alive. Darth Vader, the Emperor's enforcer, responsible for countless atrocities, is in their custody. What do they do with him? Some call for immediate execution. Others argue for imprisonment and trial. And a few, including Luke and Ahsoka. Leia takes a political path, becoming a key leader in the New Republic Senate. She has Force abilities but chooses not to develop them fully, preferring to serve through governance and diplomacy. Her relationship with Anakin is complicated. He's her biological father, but he's also the man who tortured her, destroyed Alderaan, and caused immeasurable suffering. She can't forgive him, but she also sees how Luke and Ahsoka believe in his redemption. It's a tension she lives with, loving her brother but unable to share his faith in their father. Anakin himself becomes a controversial figure in the new galaxy. Some see him as a monster who escaped justice. Others view him as a cautionary tale about the dangers of fear and attachment. A few recognize his redemption as genuine and see hope in his transformation. He works quietly, using his knowledge of Imperial systems to help the New Republic, providing testimony that helps prosecute war criminals and trying to make amends in whatever small ways he can. He never seeks public recognition or forgiveness, understanding that some wounds can never heal. Years pass. The New Republic stabilizes. Luke's Jedi Order grows, producing a generation of Force users who are more balanced and connected to the galaxy than the old Jedi ever were. Imperial remnants are gradually defeated or integrated into the new government. Democracy, imperfect and messy, takes root across systems that knew only tyranny for decades. And slowly, painfully, the galaxy begins to heal. Ahsoka's role in all this is crucial. She becomes a bridge between different eras and philosophies. She trained under the old order but was never fully part of it after her trial. She fought in the Clone Wars but also lived through the dark times. She understands both Jedi idealism and practical necessity. Her wisdom helps shape Luke's new order, ensuring it doesn't repeat old mistakes while honoring the best of Jedi tradition. She also maintains her role as fulcrum, now coordinating intelligence for the New Republic rather than the Rebellion. Her network of contacts, built over decades of fighting the Empire, proves invaluable in rooting out remaining Imperial cells and preventing the kind of resurgence that could threaten the fragile peace. She works from the shadows, preferring to let others take credit while she focuses on results. It's a role she's comfortable with, one that suits her nature as someone who never quite fit into the rigid structure of the old Jedi Order. The relationship between Ahsoka and Anakin evolves slowly over the years following Endor. They're not master and apprentice anymore. They're not even the same people they were during the Clone Wars. But there's still a bond between them, forged in shared experience and tempered by betrayal and redemption. They meet occasionally, usually when Luke brings them together for discussions about training or when Anakin's knowledge is needed for some crisis. These meetings are awkward at first, weighted with everything unsaid between them, but gradually they find a rhythm. Ahsoka helps Anakin process his guilt, sharing her own experiences of feeling betrayed by the Order and having to forgive them to move forward. She tells him that holding on to anger and self-loathing only gives the dark side more power over him. True redemption requires accepting forgiveness even when you don't feel worthy of it. Anakin struggles with this. He sees the faces of those he killed every time he closes his eyes. But Ahsoka's steady presence and Luke's unwavering faith slowly help him find a path toward peace. Luke's students at the new Jedi Academy are fascinated and disturbed by Anakin Skywalker. Here is the Chosen One, the man who was supposed to bring balance to the Force. He did eventually, but only after decades as the galaxy's greatest villain. Anakin occasionally teaches at the Academy, sharing lessons about the dangers of the dark side from someone who lived them. His classes are uncomfortable, raw, honest. He doesn't sugarcoat his fall or his crimes. He shows them exactly how fear and attachment can be twisted into weapons by those who understand your weaknesses. These lessons are controversial. Some parents don't want their Force-sensitive children learning from Darth Vader, no matter how redeemed he claims to be. Others argue that learning from someone who fell and climbed back is more valuable than learning from those who never struggled with darkness. Luke supports his father's involvement despite the criticism, believing that the new order must face uncomfortable truths if it's going to avoid the old order's mistakes. Ahsoka backs this decision, though she monitors the students carefully to ensure Anakin's presence doesn't traumatize or corrupt them. The galaxy's healing is uneven. Some worlds embrace the New Republic immediately, grateful to be free of Imperial oppression. Others resist, having benefited from the Empire or simply fearing the chaos of transition. There are warlords carving out territories in the Outer Rim, criminal syndicates filling power vacuums, and true believers who still worship Palpatine's vision. The New Republic faces constant challenges, and the Jedi find themselves called upon to help maintain peace. But this time, the relationship between the Jedi and the government is different. Luke and Ahsoka insist on independence, on the Order serving the Force and the galaxy rather than becoming tools of politicians. They advise the Senate, they help with crises, but they don't command armies or serve as generals. The memory of how the Clone Wars corrupted the Jedi is too fresh. They won't repeat that mistake. Ahsoka takes on several long-term missions during this period, traveling to disputed territories to mediate conflicts, investigate reports of dark side activity, and search for lost Jedi knowledge. She discovers temples and holocrons that survived the Purge, recovering techniques and philosophies that enrich Luke's curriculum. She also encounters Force users who were never Jedi or Sith, groups with their own traditions and understanding of the Force. These meetings broaden her perspective even further and influence how she thinks about the Force's nature. On one of these missions, Ahsoka discovers something troubling. Deep in the unknown regions, there are whispers of something ancient and dark stirring. Sith cultists gathering artifacts, strange visions in the Force of threats yet to come. She investigates as much as she can, but finds only fragments and rumors. When she reports this to Luke and the New Republic, they take it seriously, but struggle to address threats that are so nebulous and distant. They're still dealing with immediate problems, with Imperial remnants and political instability. Future threats feel less urgent. Anakin's health slowly deteriorates over the years. The damage from Palpatine's Force lightning was extensive, and even though he survived the initial assault, the long-term effects are severe. His body is breaking down, and healers can only slow the decline, not stop it. He knows he doesn't have much time left. This knowledge brings a strange peace. He's lived long enough to see his son become a great Jedi, to witness the Order rebuilt on better principles, to make at least some amends for his crimes. It's more than he deserved. As Anakin's condition worsens, Luke spends more time with him, learning everything he can from his father's experiences. Not just combat techniques or Force abilities, but lessons about choices and consequences, about the constant vigilance required to resist the dark side's temptations, about the importance of balance. These conversations shape Luke profoundly, informing his philosophy as he continues building the new Jedi Order. Ahsoka also visits frequently during Anakin's final months. Their conversations return often to the Clone Wars, to the missions they shared, to the bond between master and apprentice that never fully broke despite everything that happened. Anakin apologizes constantly for Mustafar, for the Temple, for hunting her and the other Jedi. Ahsoka tells him repeatedly that she forgave him long ago, that his redemption is real, that he's earned peace. Whether he truly believes her is unclear, but he seems grateful to hear it. When Anakin Skywalker finally dies, it's peacefully, surrounded by Luke and Leia and with Ahsoka nearby. His last words are to his children, telling them he's proud of who they've become, that they succeeded where he failed, that they should never stop believing in redemption and second chances. Then he closes his eyes and becomes one with the Force. His body disappears, fading into the energy field that binds the galaxy together, the way Obi-Wan and Yoda did before him. The Chosen One's journey is complete. The galaxy's reaction to Anakin's death is mixed. Some celebrate the passing of Darth Vader, seeing it as the final end to the Empire's dark legacy. Others mourn Anakin Skywalker, recognizing his redemption and the good he did in his final years. Most have complicated feelings, acknowledging both the monster he was and the man he became. The New Republic holds a memorial service that becomes a moment of collective processing, allowing the galaxy to confront the complex legacy of someone who was both hero and villain. Luke grieves deeply, but also feels release. His father is at peace. The dark shadow that hung over the Skywalker name is finally lifting. He can move forward with building the Jedi Order without the constant weight of Anakin's past pulling at him. The students at the Academy hold their own ceremony, sharing what they learned from Anakin's teachings and committing to honor his memory by never repeating his mistakes. Ahsoka processes Anakin's death by throwing herself into work. She takes on more missions, travels further into dangerous territory, pushes herself harder than ever. Luke recognizes what she's doing and gently suggests she needs to grieve. The New Republic continues to evolve and face challenges. Criminal organizations like the Hutt cartels expand their operations in the chaos following the Empire's fall. Former Imperial officers form warlord states in the Outer Rim, ruling through military might. And beneath all this visible conflict, darker forces are moving. The whispers Ahsoka heard in the unknown regions are growing louder. Sith artifacts are being collected. Ancient dark side knowledge is being compiled. Something is preparing to emerge, though exactly what remains unclear. Ahsoka brings her concerns to the New Republic Senate and Luke's Jedi Council repeatedly. She argues that they need to investigate the unknown regions more thoroughly, to understand what threats might be building there. But the Senate is focused on immediate problems, on rebuilding infrastructure, on integrating former Imperial worlds, on economic stability. They can't spare resources for vague threats in unexplored space. Even Luke, while taking her concerns seriously, believes they need to focus on training the next generation, before seeking out new conflicts. Frustrated but understanding the political realities, Ahsoka begins her own investigations. She assembles a small team of trusted operatives, Jedi and non-Jedi, to explore the unknown regions and gather intelligence. What they find is disturbing. Entire civilizations touched by dark-side corruption, ancient Sith worlds thought lost, and evidence of a coordinated effort to gather power and knowledge for some purpose that hasn't yet revealed itself. Ahsoka compiles detailed reports, but without concrete proof of an imminent threat, she struggles to get people to take action. Years turn into decades. Ahsoka ages but remains remarkably vital, her Togruta physiology and force abilities keeping her active long past when most humans would have retired. She becomes a living legend, one of the last direct connections to the Clone Wars era, to the old Jedi Order, to the dark times of the Empire. Young Jedi seek her out for wisdom. Historians interview her about the past. Politicians consult her on matters of ethics and justice. She's become an institution herself, though she remains uncomfortable with the attention. Luke's Jedi Order is now fully established, with temples on multiple worlds and dozens of active Jedi Knights. The Order has proven itself valuable to galactic society, mediating disputes, responding to crises, and serving as moral guides without demanding political power. The mistakes of the old order seem truly left behind, but Ahsoka worries about complacency. Every generation thinks they've learned from the past, thinks they won't repeat old mistakes. But the dark side is patient and insidious. It finds new vulnerabilities, new fears to exploit. She shares these concerns with Luke during one of their regular meetings. He understands her worry, but also points out that fear itself can be a path to the dark side. They can't prepare for every possible threat. They can only train their students to be wise, compassionate, and vigilant. Ahsoka knows he's right, but her experiences have taught her that vigilance sometimes means actively seeking out threats before they mature. It's a philosophical difference between them, born from their different experiences and perspectives. The relationship between Ahsoka and the younger generation of Jedi is interesting. To them, she's a figure from history, someone who lived through events they only read about. But she doesn't act like a relic. She's active, engaged, willing to adapt and learn from them even as she teaches. She incorporates techniques from Force traditions she's encountered in her travels, expanding the Order's knowledge base. She questions assumptions and encourages her students to do the same. In many ways, she embodies the spirit of the New Order better than anyone. Ben Skywalker, now a young man and a Jedi Knight himself, asks Ahsoka about his grandfather during one of their training sessions. He wants to understand how Anakin fell, what warning signs to watch for in himself and others. Ahsoka sits with him and tells him the full story. Not the sanitized version, but the raw truth of fear, love, manipulation, and choice. She explains how Anakin's attachment to his mother's memory, his fear of losing Padme, and Palpatine's patient grooming all combined to push him toward darkness. But she also emphasizes that none of it was inevitable. Anakin made choices at every step, and different choices would have led to different outcomes. Ben absorbs this lesson deeply. He's determined not to repeat his grandfather's mistakes, but he also recognizes that simply avoiding attachment isn't the answer. The old Jedi tried that and it didn't work. Instead, he needs to acknowledge his feelings, process them healthily, and ensure that love strengthens rather than corrupts him. It's a harder path than simply suppressing emotions, but it's more honest and ultimately more sustainable. As Ahsoka reaches her later years, she begins to sense her own mortality. The Force shows her glimpses of paths ahead, and she knows her time is growing short. She's not afraid. She's lived a full life, survived impossible odds, seen the worst of the galaxy, and the best of what it could become. She's helped rebuild the Jedi Order and mentored a generation that will carry forward into the future. Whatever comes next, she's ready for it. She makes one final journey to the unknown regions, following the threads of dark side activity she's been tracking for years. What she finds confirms her worst fears. There are remnants of the Sith, not just cultists, but true believers with significant power, preparing for something. They've been gathering strength in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. The threat she's been warning about is real, and it's closer than anyone realized. Ahsoka sends detailed intelligence back to Luke and the New Republic before confronting the Sith cultists. The battle that follows is fierce. She's outnumbered but experienced, and she fights with the wisdom of decades and the power of a fully realized Jedi Master. She defeats several dark side users and disrupts their plans significantly, but she's wounded in the process. As she escapes back to known space, she knows she's bought time for the galaxy to prepare. But the threat isn't eliminated, only delayed. She makes it back to Luke's academy on Ossus, where the new Jedi Order has established its primary temple. Luke and the other Jedi Masters tend to her injuries, but the damage is extensive. Her body, pushed beyond its limits for so many years, is finally giving out. She's not dying from the wounds themselves, but from the accumulated weight of a lifetime spent fighting. As she rests in the healing chambers, Jedi from across the galaxy come to pay respects to the legendary Fulcrum. To Ahsoka Tano, who served the Jedi Order even when it rejected her, Luke sits with her constantly during her final days. They talk about everything they've accomplished, about the challenges still ahead, about what the Force has shown them. Ahsoka tells Luke that she's proud of what he's built, that the new Order is what the Jedi should have always been. She makes him promise to take the threat from the unknown regions seriously, to prepare the next generation for the trials they'll face. Luke promises, and she can sense through the Force that he means it. In her final moments, Ahsoka isn't alone. Luke is there, and Ben, and many of the students she trained over the decades. She looks at them all and smiles, genuinely at peace. She tells them that the Force is eternal, that she'll always be with them in one form or another, that they should never stop questioning, never stop growing, never stop believing in redemption. Then she closes her eyes and becomes one with the Force, her body fading as Anakin's did, as all the greatest Jedi eventually do. The galaxy mourns Ahsoka Tano. Memorials are held on dozens of worlds. The New Republic names a fleet carrier after her. The Jedi Order establishes a scholarship in her name for students from non-traditional backgrounds. Stories of her exploits, from the Clone Wars through the Rebellion to the founding of the New Republic, are compiled and taught to new generations. She becomes a legend, an example of what it means to serve something greater than yourself while maintaining your integrity and independence. But her greatest legacy is what she helped create: a Jedi Order that learned from past mistakes. A generation of Force users who understand balance. Young people like Ben Skywalker who carry forward ideals of compassion, justice, and wisdom without the dogma that limited their predecessors. The seed she planted will grow for generations, shaping the galaxy in ways she never lived to see. The threat from the unknown regions that Ahsoka warned about eventually does emerge. The Sith cultists, empowered by ancient knowledge and driven by fanatical devotion to the dark side, launch attacks on New Republic space. But thanks to Ahsoka's intelligence and warnings, the galaxy is prepared. Luke's Jedi Order stands ready. The New Republic's military is positioned to respond, and the young Jedi she trained, carrying forward her lessons about vigilance and balance, meet the threat head-on. The conflict is difficult and costly, but the galaxy prevails. The Sith threat is defeated, not through a single dramatic confrontation, but through sustained effort by multiple generations working together. The Jedi Order proves its value once again, but more importantly, it proves its sustainability. This isn't the old order that fell because of its rigid adherence to dogma. This is something new, flexible, resilient, capable of adapting to challenges while maintaining core principles. Ben Skywalker, now a senior Jedi Master himself, often thinks about Ahsoka's teachings as he guides the next generation. The question that philosophers and Force scholars debate for generations is whether this timeline is better than the original. In the original timeline, Ahsoka left the Order and became something unique. Ahsoka the Grey, neither Jedi nor Sith. She carved her own path and arguably had as much or more impact on the galaxy from outside the Order as she could have had within it. In this timeline, by staying, she influenced the Order from within, helping to transform it into something better than what it was. There's no clear answer about which path was superior. Both versions of Ahsoka served the Force and the galaxy according to their circumstances. But this timeline's Ahsoka helped prevent some tragedies while creating new possibilities. Her presence during Anakin's crisis meant he fell, but with seeds of redemption already planted. Her survival of Order 66 with a group of younglings meant more Jedi knowledge was preserved. Her role in the rebellion and the founding of the New Republic provided crucial strategic advantage. And her influence on Luke's Jedi Order shaped it in ways that made it more resilient and effective. Perhaps the most significant difference is that in this timeline, the Jedi Order never fully died. It was broken, scattered, hunted to near extinction, but it never completely ceased to exist. Ahsoka and the other survivors kept it alive, kept teaching, kept serving. When the Empire fell, they didn't have to start from scratch. They had continuity, institutional memory, living connections to what the Jedi were supposed to be. This allowed them to rebuild more quickly and more thoughtfully, incorporating lessons from both the Order's successes and its failures. The galaxy that emerges from this alternate history is one where the Jedi are trusted but not worshipped, respected but not feared, powerful but not dominant. They serve as advisors, mediators, peacekeepers, and spiritual guides without becoming political actors or military commanders. It's the role they should have always played, but couldn't in the days of the Republic because they'd become too entangled with governmental power. Ahsoka's decision to stay, despite her justified anger and hurt, helped create this better balance. Decades after Ahsoka's death, historians and Force scholars study her life extensively. They analyze the moment she chose to stay with the Order after her trial, identifying it as a crucial turning point not just for her, but for the entire galaxy. Some argue she made the wrong choice, that leaving as she did in the original timeline led to personal growth and freedom that shaped her into something extraordinary. Others contend that staying was the more difficult choice, the more Jedi choice, requiring her to forgive institutional betrayal and work for change from within. The truth, as with most historical debates, is complex and multifaceted. Ahsoka's choice to stay changed her trajectory and the galaxy's trajectory in profound ways. She endured hardships she might have avoided by leaving. She faced dangers and responsibilities that she might have escaped. But she also gained opportunities to influence, to teach, to shape the future in ways that might not have been possible from outside the Order. Her life became a testament to the power of forgiveness, not the kind that excuses wrong action, but the kind that chooses to move forward despite betrayal. Young Force users in the generations following Ahsoka's death look to her, example when they face their own moments of choice, when institutions fail them, when leaders betray their trust, when they must decide whether to stay and fight for change or leave and forge their own paths. There's no single right answer, but Ahsoka's life shows that staying, working within flawed systems to make them better, can be a valid and powerful choice. Not the only choice, but a worthy one. The final assessment of whether Ahsoka should have stayed with the Jedi Order ultimately depends on perspective. From the galaxy's perspective, her choice to stay arguably led to better outcomes. More Jedi survived Order 66. Anakin's redemption came earlier and more completely. The new Jedi Order was founded with better principles and stronger foundations. The transition from Empire to New Republic was smoother with her strategic guidance. Threats that might have destroyed the fragile peace were identified and neutralized because of her vigilance. From Ahsoka's personal perspective, the answer is more ambiguous. She endured trauma, bore responsibilities that aged her beyond her years, and spent decades in conflict and danger. Would she have been happier, more fulfilled if she'd walked away and lived her own life on her own terms? Perhaps. But she also experienced the satisfaction of helping rebuild something important, of guiding the next generation, of seeing the Jedi Order become what it should have been. She made peace with Anakin in a way that might not have been possible if she'd left. She helped save Luke and Leia. She contributed to the galaxy's healing. In the end, Ahsoka Tano's decision to stay with the Jedi Order after her trial represents a road not taken in our familiar Star Wars timeline, but one worth exploring. It shows us that forgiveness and loyalty, even in the face of institutional failure, can be sources of strength rather than weakness. That working within systems to change them can be as valuable as abandoning those systems, and that sometimes the hardest choices lead to the most meaningful outcomes, even if they come at personal cost. So what if Ahsoka stayed with the Jedi Order? The galaxy would have been different in countless ways, some better and some simply different. But the core truth remains the same as in all Star Wars stories. Individuals matter. Choices matter. The decision to serve something greater than yourself, to fight for justice and peace, to believe in redemption and second chances, these things shape the galaxy more than any superweapon or political system. Ahsoka Tano embodied these principles whether she stayed with the Order or left it. And that's what makes her one of the most important Jedi in galactic history. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of an alternate timeline where one Padawan's loyalty changed the fate of the galaxy. If you enjoyed this deep dive into what might have been, let me know in the comments what other alternate Star Wars scenarios you'd like to see explored. What if Qui-Gon survived? What if Padme lived? What if the Clone Wars never happened? The possibilities are endless, and each one reveals new truths about the characters and galaxy we love. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and may the Force be with you, always.